I never thought a simple trip to the local shooting range would change our lives forever. My daughter Lily had been begging me for months to teach her how to shoot. At 16 she was old enough, and with all the troubles we'd been having with our homeowners association, I figured some stress relief would do us both good. Before we start the story, please comment down from which country are you watching. Also don't forget to subscribe. The Pinewood HOA had been a thorn in our side since we moved in 3 years ago. Their president, Richard Keller, seemed to make it his personal mission to make our lives difficult. First it was complaints about our mailbox being the wrong shade of brown. Then it was the height of our grass, literally measuring it with a ruler. The final straw came when he fined us for the basketball hoop in our driveway that Lily used to practice for her school team. "It's an eyesore," he had said during the last HOA meeting, pointing at the pictures he'd taken of our house. Property values, people. We need to think about property values. The way he'd looked at us like we were dirt beneath his expensive shoes made my blood boil. But I kept my cool. I always did. As a single father raising a teenage daughter, I'd learned to pick my battles. Our troubles with Richard had started almost immediately after he became president. I remember the day he knocked on our door just a week after we'd moved in. I was still unpacking boxes when the doorbell rang. There stood Richard in pressed khakis and a polo shirt with the HOA logo embroidered on the chest. "Welcome to Pinewood," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Richard Keller, president of the Homeowners Association." He handed me a thick binder. "Here's our community guidebook. I suggest you read it thoroughly." I thanked him, thinking it was a genuine welcome, until I found the yellow sticky note marking page 47, which detailed lawn maintenance requirements. Our grass was apparently half an inch too tall already. The next 3 years were a series of similar encounters. When Lily made the basketball team as a freshman and I installed the hoop for her to practice, Richard was at our door within 24 hours with a friendly reminder about external fixtures. When I painted our front door navy blue instead of the approved forest green, there was a citation the next morning. When Lily's art project, a beautiful mosaic birdbath, was placed in our front garden, Richard personally took photos of it as evidence of a violation. It wasn't just us. The Garcias next door received weekly warnings about their children's bicycles being visible from the street. The elderly Mrs. Patterson was reduced to tears when she was fined for planting tulips instead of the approved flower varieties. Richard Keller ruled Pinewood with an iron fist disguised in a velvet glove of community standards. "Dad, can we go now?" Lily asked, pulling me from my thoughts. We were in the parking lot of the Mountain View shooting range, and she was practically bouncing with excitement. "Remember what I told you?" I said as we walked inside. "This isn't a game. Guns demand respect." She nodded solemnly. "I know, Dad. Safety first. Always." I'd been teaching Lily about gun safety for weeks before this trip. We'd watched videos together, practiced proper handling with an unloaded gun at home, and discussed the serious responsibility that came with firearms. She'd absorbed it all with the same focus she brought to basketball practice, determined, attentive, and eager to learn. The range was busier than I expected for a Saturday morning. Most of the lanes were full, but we managed to find one at the far end. I had brought my old Glock 19, nothing fancy but reliable and perfect for beginners. As I started to unpack our gear and explain the basics to Lily, I heard a familiar voice that made my stomach sink. "Well, look who it is. The Thompsons from Pinewood." Richard Keller stood there with 2 other men from the HOA board, all dressed in what looked like brand new tactical gear. Richard's shooting glasses probably cost more than my entire setup. "Mr. Keller?" I nodded, trying to be civil. "Didn't know you were into shooting." He smirked, looking at my worn case and basic equipment. "Oh, I've been a member of the gun club for years. Executive membership." He emphasized the word, executive, like it was a royal title. "We're getting ready for the charity shooting competition next month. Raises money for the police department." Richard was in his mid-50s, with salt and pepper hair always perfectly styled, and the confident posture of someone who'd never had to worry about money. Beside him stood Walter Peterson, the HOA treasurer, a balding man with small eyes and a permanent frown. The third man was Doug Farrell, who'd recently joined the board after Richard personally endorsed him. Walter peered at Lily. "Is this your daughter? Didn't know children were allowed on the range." "I'm 16, Lily said, standing taller. "The range allows anyone over 15 with parental supervision." Richard raised an eyebrow. "First time shooting? How cute." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. "Better stick to basketball, sweetheart. This is a serious sport." I saw Lily's face fall and something in me snapped. Not violently, but I was done letting this man push us around. Lily's a quick learner, I said firmly. Why don't you focus on your own shooting? Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Tell you what, he said, we're about to start our practice round. Why don't you watch how the pros do it? Might learn something. Before I could decline, they moved to the lane next to ours. I turned to Lily, expecting to see disappointment, but instead, her jaw was set with determination. Dad, teach me properly, she whispered. I want to show them I can do this. Lily had always been resilient. After her mother left when she was 7, moving across the country with her new boyfriend and rarely calling, Lily had cried for weeks. Then one day she dried her tears and told me, "It's okay, Dad. We've got each other." She'd been my rock as much as I'd been hers. For the next 30 minutes I carefully walked Lily through the basics: how to hold the gun, proper stance, breathing techniques, and most importantly, safety protocols. She listened intently, asking smart questions. Meanwhile, Richard and his friends made a show of their shooting, loud and flashy, occasionally glancing our way with smirks when Lily flinched at the noise. "Remember," I told her quietly, "focus on your breathing. In pause, squeeze out." I could see her absorbing every word, her eyes narrowed in concentration. This was the same look she got before important basketball games, completely in the zone. "Time to try it yourself," I finally said, loading the Glock with just 3 rounds to start. "Remember, squeeze, don't pull." Lily took the gun with reverent caution, her hands trembling slightly. She raised it toward the target, a simple paper silhouette at 15 yards. "Look at that grip," Richard laughed loudly to his friends. "Girls holding it like it's a dead rat." Walter and Doug chuckled. Several other shooters glanced our way, some with sympathy, others with amusement. I saw Lily's cheeks flush with embarrassment, but she didn't lower the gun. Instead, she adjusted her grip exactly as I'd shown her. "Ignore them," I whispered. "Focus on the target." She took a deep breath and fired. The shot went wide, missing the target completely. The laughter from the next lane grew louder. "Maybe stick to baking cookies," Walter called out. Doug added, "Bet she can't even make a free throw, let alone hit a target." Richard shook his head with mock sympathy. "Some people just aren't cut out for certain things." Lily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but she gritted her teeth and raised the gun again. The second shot clipped the very edge of the target. "Better, but still not good." "Sweetheart," Richard said in a mock sympathetic voice that carried across the range, "this isn't like your video games. Maybe let your dad shoot instead? This is more of a man's sport anyway." Several people were watching now, drawn by the commotion. I was about to intervene to tell Richard exactly what I thought of him, when Lily fired her third shot. It hit the outer ring of the target, not great but definitely improvement. She turned to me, a small smile forming. "Can I have more rounds, Dad? I think I'm getting the hang of it." Pride swelled in my chest. "Of course." I loaded 5 more rounds, acutely aware of Richard and his friends watching, their smiles turning slightly strained. Lily rolled her shoulders back, took a deep breath, and settled into her stance. It reminded me of when she first learned to shoot hoops, that same determined focus, the ability to block out distractions. Her 4th shot hit closer to center. By the 5th shot, her hands were steady, her stance confident. The 6th shot punched a hole near the bullseye. The range had grown quieter. Richard and his friends were no longer laughing. "Where did you say you learned to shoot?" I heard Walter ask her. "I didn't," Lily replied without taking her eyes off the target. "This is my first time." Her 7th shot hit dead center. A man from a few lanes down whistled appreciatively. "Natural talent right there," he commented. The man had been watching for a while, an older gentleman with military straight posture and calm, assessing eyes. I'd noticed him nodding approvingly as Lily's shots improved. Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of red. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, but he sounded unsure. Lily fired her 8th shot, again hitting the center mass. Then her 9th, another perfect hit. For her final shot, the 10th, she paused, took a careful breath and squeezed the trigger. The bullet pierced the exact center of the bullseye. The range fell silent. Lily carefully placed the gun down, making sure it pointed downrange, and stepped back. She looked over at Richard, not with arrogance but with quiet dignity. "Not bad for a girl who should stick to baking cookies, right?" Richard opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. No words came out. A slow clap started from somewhere in the range, spreading until several people were applauding. The range safety officer walked over, examining Lily's target. "Young lady, that's some of the best first-time shooting I've ever seen," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You considering joining our junior league?" We could use talent like yours. The older gentleman I'd noticed earlier approached us. Name's Frank Miller, he said, extending his hand first to Lily then to me. 20 years Army, now I coach the regional junior shooting team. Your daughter has a natural gift. The way she improved with each shot, that's not common. Richard's face was now purple with embarrassment. He mumbled something to his friends, and they quickly packed up their expensive gear, avoiding eye contact with everyone. As they hurried past us, Richard paused. For a moment I thought he might say something nasty, but instead he gave a curt nod to Lily. Nice shooting, he muttered before rushing away. After they left, several other shooters came over to congratulate Lily. An older woman who introduced herself as a competitive shooter offered to give Lily some tips anytime. The range owner even came out from his office when he heard about the teenage girl who outshot the HOA guy. Dad, Lily whispered to me as we were surrounded by supportive strangers, is this real? I squeezed her shoulder. You earned this. I'm so proud of you. Frank Miller handed Lily his card. Junior team practices on Wednesdays and Saturdays. No pressure, but we'd love to have you. First session's free if you want to try it out. Lily looked at me, her eyes bright with excitement. Can I, Dad? How could I say no to that face? Of course. That day changed things for us. Word spread quickly through Pinewood. By Monday morning, everyone had heard about how Lily Thompson, the basketball player, had humbled Richard Keller at the shooting range. People stopped us in the grocery store to congratulate her. Some neighbors who had never spoken to us suddenly became friendly. Mrs. Patterson, whose tulips had earned her multiple HOA violations, brought us a homemade apple pie. Heard your girl showed Richard Keller what's what, she said with a wink. The Garcias invited us over for a barbecue. Everyone's talking about it, Maria Garcia told us over grilled chicken. How Richard and his cronies got put in their place by a teenager. Lily took to shooting with the same dedication she showed basketball. She joined Frank's junior team, practicing twice a week. Her natural eye-hand coordination transferred perfectly from one sport to the other. She's a natural, Frank told me after her third practice. The way she focuses, the way she controls her breathing. Some adults never master those skills. At the next HOA meeting, I braced myself for Richard's retaliation. But something had shifted. Richard was notably less combative. When the topic of our basketball hoop came up again, he cleared his throat and said, "Upon further review, the board has decided that properly maintained sports equipment does not violate our community standards." Walter looked shocked at this reversal, but Richard silenced him with a look. After the meeting, Richard approached me in the parking lot. Without his usual entourage, he seemed smaller somehow, less intimidating. Your daughter, he began, then paused, choosing his words carefully. She's quite talented. Yes, she is, I agreed, waiting. I may have been hasty in some of my judgments. He looked uncomfortable but pressed on. The charity shooting competition I mentioned, it raises money for the police department's youth outreach program. We could use someone with her skills on the team. I raised my eyebrows. You want Lily to shoot with you? Frank Miller suggested it, actually. Said she'd be an asset. Richard shuffled his feet. Look, I know we've had our differences. But this is for charity. I told him I'd discuss it with Lily, not making any promises. When I mentioned it to her that night, I expected her to refuse immediately. Instead, she considered it thoughtfully. You know what, Dad? I think I will. Not for him but for the charity. And to show I don't hold grudges. My daughter, wiser than her years. 2 months later, Lily won her first junior shooting competition. Richard was there watching from the crowd. When she received her trophy, he was among those who applauded, standing a little straighter as if taking some pride in her achievement. The charity event came around, and Lily joined Richard's team along with Frank Miller and another experienced shooter. To everyone's surprise, they worked well together. Richard deferred to Frank's expertise and actually listened to Lily's suggestions about strategy. They placed second overall, raising substantial funds for the youth program. The local paper ran a story about the event, featuring a photo of the team. Local teen sharpshooter helps raise $50,000 for youth programs, the headline read. Lily's beaming face next to Richard's more reserved smile told the story of an unlikely partnership. The basketball hoop still stands in our driveway, and Lily still practices her shots every evening, both kinds of shots. She's talking about college scholarships now, maybe even Olympic trials someday for shooting. As for Richard, he's still the HOA president, but something changed after that day at the range. Perhaps it was being humbled in public, or maybe it was seeing that his assumptions about a teenage girl were completely wrong. Whatever the reason, he's different now, less quick to judge, more willing to listen. Mrs. Patterson's tulips now bloom freely in her front garden. The Garcia children's bicycles sit on their porch without generating citations. And when Lily painted our front door a bright, cheerful yellow, definitely not on the approved color list, Richard walked by, looked at it and simply nodded. Last week, I overheard him at the community mailboxes speaking to a new resident. The great thing about Pinewood, he was saying, is the diversity of people and talents here. We have champion athletes, artists, all sorts of interesting folks. The new resident pointed at our house. What about that yellow door? Is that allowed? Richard smiled, a genuine smile, not the condescending one he used to wear. We've learned to be more flexible about personal expression. It's what makes a community unique. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from unexpected teachers. In our case, it took just 10 shots from a 16-year-old girl to teach a grown man about respect, humility, and the danger of underestimating others. The following year, Lily and Richard ended up on the same team again for the charity shooting competition. This time they took first place. The trophy sits in the community center lobby, a reminder that sometimes our fiercest opponents can become our most unexpected allies. And Frank Miller? He's now talking about Lily competing at the state level, maybe even nationally. She's got what it takes, he told me recently. The skill, the focus, and most importantly, the heart. Last month, Richard approached me at one of Lily's basketball games. He'd never attended one before, but there he was, sitting awkwardly in the bleachers. "Your daughter's quite the athlete," he commented during halftime. "All-around talented young woman." I nodded, still surprised to see him there. "You know," he continued, "my wife and I never had children. Always focused on careers, property values, appearances." He was quiet for a moment. "Seeing Lily, how she handles herself, makes me wonder what I missed." It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared with me. The buzzer sounded and Lily ran back onto the court, shooting me a quick wave. Richard watched her with something like respect in his eyes. "You've done a good job with her," he said simply. And in that moment, I realized that those 10 shots at the range hadn't just changed Richard. They'd changed our entire community. They'd shattered assumptions, opened minds, and built unexpected bridges. All because my daughter refused to be silenced by mockery or intimidation. 10 shots that didn't just hit a paper target, but transformed our neighborhood into a true community. As Lily likes to say, it's not about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And that day at the shooting range, with the HOA president and his friends watching in disbelief, my daughter proved herself right in the most spectacular way possible. She didn't just learn to shoot a gun that day. She learned that when faced with people who underestimate you, sometimes the best response isn't angry words or retreat, it's calm, focused excellence. 10 shots. That's all it took to go from being mocked to being respected. 10 shots that left them speechless. 10 shots that changed everything.